Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, I'm talking to Joel Froome, the director of photography for the new movie The Yeti, out in theaters April the 4th and on VOD April 10th. Welcome to the show, Joel.
Thanks for having me. Lovely to be here.
Yeah. I hope I said your name correctly.
No, yeah, it was perfect. It was great.
All right, great. All right. So before we really kind of jump into the Yeti itself, I wanted to ask, how did you get into being a cinematographer? Was it something you always wanted to do?
I mean, yeah, I mean, everyone's got such an interesting path into the film industry and cinematography in particular. It wasn't something that since a child, I'd always dreamed of doing. I hadn't heard of it, really growing up on the northern beaches of
Right.
Sydney. And I like when I was in high school, I remember seeing in the paper that a guy who I went to a school called Bagala Boys High School, and a guy that went there was won the Academy Award for The English Patient. There was a brilliant Australian cinematographer named John Seal, and he won the cinematography Oscar that year. And like many years, he obviously went to school many years before me. And I remember that in the back of my head. That's cool. Never thought of
Yeah.
what is a cinematographer or anything. But years later, when I went to a course at the Australian Film School after graduating high school, and it was just like everyone tells you what to do. Like it was like a week long course where like a director speaks and a editor speaks. Like that's interesting because I
Oh,
just
okay.
had a slight interest in the film industry, so my career advice said to go. And then on the Thursday, I remember that Thursday afternoon, the cinematographer spoke, and it was like everything I could ever dream of in terms of interests and just the way he spoke of collaboration. And like I had done photography all through high school, so just
Okay.
using like images to tell stories, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like the most interesting. I couldn't dream up a better job. But then it's like, well, how do I even approach? How does one be a cinematographer when you're
Right.
as 18-year-old and in Sydney. But I remembered back to in high school when the guy won the Oscar a few years earlier. So I reached out to my vice principal at school. I'm like, do you have any way of getting in touch with that guy? And he's like, I'll find a way. And a few weeks later, he goes, here's an address. And this is in the late 90s. So I wrote him a letter because it's before email or
Yeah,
any of that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
really, so, and then, yeah, and he got in touch, had a great chat, and he kind of gave me some advice. And that was once I kind of discovered cinematography, that's when it's like, well, okay, well, I really need to kind of dive in and watch some movies and figure out like what is a cinematographer and how does,
Yeah.
what does it entail? So it was kind of cool because like, I liked movies through high school and grow as a kid, but I wasn't like this movie buff that had seen everything. So it was kind of fun
Oh,
to go
yeah.
back and rewatch so many movies that I had missed. Um, and just sort of if through the lens of like what a cinematographer does and sort of interest in cinematography and that's really what kind of got my interest and started to learn from watching a lot of films before going to film school and working on set and then going to the Australian Film School eventually. And yeah, long journey. It's like
Yeah.
they always say like if I mean I worked in the camera department a bit before going to the Australian Film School, but they say sometimes it can be the longest apprenticeship in the world to go through the camera department to be a cinematographer. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, no, I always kind of assume that most cinematographers start out as photographers and just kind of like, transition over to that because you already have some kind of background. You know that you like taking pictures and that
Mm,
you'll enjoy making movies, or that you were maybe somebody who wanted to become a director and then you just kind of transitioned into cinematography instead of actually directing. Um,
yeah,
because you like the technical aspects of it rather than like what the director does. um
yeah, exactly.
and I think there's like kind of like this thing too where most people assume that the director is actually doing a lot of the filming and the director doesn't do any. They like they're A director's job is really kind of like wrangling all the everything else
Hmm.
together to kind of enhance the kind of vision that they're having over the
Hmm.
material. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think
I mean,
that's
it's always, I
interesting.
mean, it's that's what's so what I love about being a cinematographer, and it's like because so many directors are different. Like, and on the
Yeah,
Yeti, we had two directors, and
yeah.
the film I did before this was with two directors, and but they were sisters, and it was a completely
Oh,
different style of
wow.
film, and they were sisters who obviously knew everything about each other and had a way of
Yeah.
working that, and they've been, since they were kids making movies, and so they had a certain style of working together. And then these, having Will and Gene on this, being two directors, each had a style of their own. So it's like I really love each project when you kind of get to discover what directors like and how they like to tell a story and how they communicate their vision. And I just like to try my best to you know give them everything that they want in terms of a from a camera and lighting and like a emotion standpoint that way. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Like, and that's the thing. Like, like the director gets like a lion's share of like the acclaim for these movies and stuff like that. But it is such a collaborative medium that, like, without that kind of, I mean, other than like, people who do kind of like do everything themselves, like a
Mhm.
Robert Rodriguez or
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
like that who can do it all. It's unusual, and so I think that it's very interesting for filmmaking, especially in low
Hmm.
budget filmmaking as well. Just
Yeah.
to have this be so collaborative, and to see that kind of work well. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in indie film, you got to get creative, and you got to rely
yeah,
on the people around
yeah,
you so much. So it's yeah,
yeah.
it's best to surround yourself with such good people.
And you've done mostly independent film, correct? From what
Yeah,
I could see from your IMDb page and
yeah.
everything like that, look
Mainly,
like you've yeah.
mainly indie features, but I've done quite a bit of documentary work as well. Like
Oh yeah,
in
I did see
between.
the Jake Tapper one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I did the Jake Tapper CNN series, which was so different. Like I just come off like I think like back to back features, and then when I did that, it was it was amazing. Like it was such a great, really interesting subjects, and it was a fun series to shoot. Like a lot of travel, but it's like when you're coming
yeah,
off the crazy world of indie features and their nutty days and whatnot. It's like getting to a documentary where you've got a couple hours to light them. Like, oh, we're going to interview the subject for 3 hours. I mean, you've got three cameras sometimes, and you
yeah,
operate the camera, but you kind of just sit there and watch the interview. You're like, the space is nice. Like I, but no. So documentary is really fun. Like I did a feature years ago. I shot the New York um part of Morgan Spurlock did a documentary about rats called Rats, and it's a
okay.
bit but he wanted to make a horror documentary. Like he really wanted to do like
Oh,
like try and really make a genre documentary and trying to make it as scary as possible and tell the story
interesting.
about rats all over the world. And a friend of mine shot that, but I ended up shooting the New York segment of it, and and it turned out great, and it was pretty terrifying. It's like it was gross and gory at points, as you'd
I can
imagine when.
imagine.
I mean,
Yeah.
they went into like the slums of Mumbai, they went into the sewers of Paris and all over, like all
Oh
over. So it
man.
was like, but it was a really interesting experience to try to shoot a genre documentary. And through that, I did a documentary called I Am Human, which is like they hired me not having a ton of documentary experience because they wanted it to feel like a science fiction film and really
Huh.
try to make it a sci-fi. So like we shot on anamorphic lenses and we tried to approach it as much as possible. How can we tell a story in these angles that makes it feel like a documentary? Because when filming with a patient with Parkinson's or something like that, you can't just be like, all right, let's go for another one, walk up the stairs again.
Yeah.
Like they're real people. But I found doing that documentary, it was probably like the most I learned about cinematography in terms of my like how to
Hmm.
work and how to be able to tell a story just through some framing and stuff like that. Like this frame feels so sci-fi and like a really interesting angle. And
Yeah.
like how can you go from that documentary world um to narrative films and yeah by telling that
Yeah.
story. So yeah, it was fascinating. So I do love working in documentaries in between the other stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, bounce around as much as possible. But yeah, mainly indie film is where I live.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's interesting to have that kind of like, and especially doing documentary films, like you said, with kind of like a genre bent to them. Because then you can take the experiences that you've had doing, this
Hmm.
other work,
Hmm.
bring it into the documentary, but also kind of take that documentary experience and then bring it into more of a filmic experience as well. So, um,
Yeah, exactly. And it
you
was
know,
great on this because cause Gene, one of the two directors on the Yeti comes from documentaries, does a lot of documentaries. So the
yeah,
way he worked was, like what like in documentary where you kind of really assess everything in front of you and you kind of make decisions because it's you don't usually have a lot of pre-production in terms of it's
Yeah.
what's in front of you. So it was great to kind of have that language with him in terms of having documentary experience. And then Will, the other director, was just amazingly talented and technical, and like his film knowledge was just unparalleled. And so it's like it was really cool to kind of have these different ways of working with them and how they work together, and how I was able to kind
Yeah.
of have that conversation with them through whether it be like through narrative experience or documentary experience. It was really cool.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I saw this was their feature debut.
Mm.
It looked like they'd done some shorts and
Hmm.
other work as well. So they did have experience, but this was their first major feature.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting
Ambitious for a
too.
major feature. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
ambitious
very
to kind of,
ambitious. Yeah, yeah,
mm,
a creature feature, and you also got Corbin Burnson and William Sadler in this, Jim
yeah,
Cummings. So
it
it's an
was
interesting cast with an
it was a
interesting
great cast. It was so,
yeah,
I mean, they were so talented. And like for me as an Australian, like my, you know, I didn't know anything about baseball till I saw Major League as a kid. So it's like,
yeah,
wait a minute, like I know that, that's how I knew Corbin Burnson. So it's like I have such a connection to that because that's how like I love that movie when I was younger. So I'm like, oh my god, I
yeah,
wish I got a Cleveland hat for him to sign or something like that. But no, they was so good, and obviously William Sadler from Shawshank and all. I mean, so many.
yeah,
It just getting to work with them. It's incredible. And then the new generation like Brittany Allen
yeah. Well, she's been on the
and Jim
pit
Cummings,
this
and
season too.
yeah,
So like,
and such a
it was
beautiful performance. Yeah.
so funny too because I started watching this. I watched the movie last night, and I recognized her. I was like, where do I recognize her from? And I looked
Yeah.
her up, and I was like, oh my god, she's been on the pit this whole season. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's like
it was
very,
such a
very
weird,
different tone
yeah, very
and
different
performance.
role. Yeah,
But no, she's amazing. She's so talented,
yeah,
and yeah, it's really, yeah. There was a
yeah.
really great experience with that cast.
Yeah, it looked like a fun cast to work with and an
Mm,
interesting film to shoot.
mm.
Because like, and I couldn't tell. Like, it seemed like there was a lot of outside shots and stuff like that. There's a lot of outside, but it also felt like that maybe this was done on like sets as well.
Mm.
Is that the case?
We shot the whole movie on the set. So the
Okay,
whole
I
thing
was
was on a
wondering
set.
about
Yeah.
that because even the outside was
Yeah.
kind of iffy, and I was like,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
this done on sets or not? And so
No,
it's
it
done
was
well because there is the kind of like
yeah,
a disconnect where I felt like it was on sets, but like I wasn't positive. So no, it's
right.
done very
Yeah.
well.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it was a huge challenge because like shooting on
Yeah,
sets um yeah, I mean, it's also like doing this on such a like it was such an ambitious project because when you're shooting a independent film where you don't have millions and millions of dollars, but
yeah,
like you are building a creature that you're going to do really well. So like you got to build the Yeti, and so obviously there's budget constraints in every department, like massively. Like our
yeah,
brilliant production designer Frank Coppola, like I think we only ended up with like 18 trees maybe. So it wasn't a massive warehouse
right,
set that like we had
yeah.
a whole forest built. Like we had
So
18
you just
to 20
constantly move
trees.
the trees around.
Well, we tried, but it's like we could only move the trees around like three times because it wasn't just the
Oh
trees, but
wow.
it's like the snow blankets that's like our
Yeah,
base
yeah,
for the snow. So it's like we had to with Will and Gene and I and Matt, our first AD, would kind of sit in pre-production and on the days we're shooting, we're like, these are our lanes through the trees to shoot this scene. Then we're going to kind of change it a little bit. And I'll kind of
yeah,
move the lighting, like flip the lighting so it seems like
yeah,
they're coming from another direction and the trees seem slightly different. And we'd have to shoot like through the same, just like have to get really creative ways of
yeah,
shooting the same path through these trees. And then eventually we're like, okay, we've shot that way, we've shot that way. Let's flip around and shoot the other direction. But it's like 3 feet from the wall from the tree is the wall of the studio, so it's not
right.
like
Yeah,
it was not a massive space that we had like all this waste. So that's kind of why I mean we shot on anamorphic lenses and on the mini LF camera because we really wanted and needed the focus to fall off pretty dramatically because like
yeah,
the last thing we
yeah,
wanted is to have all this depth of field where like past our forest you can see them building another set like at the 20, 30 feet down in the studio because we
Right.
didn't have, we were all in the same studio for all the different sets and stuff. So we needed a lot of fall off and stuff. But it was fun. It was a fun challenge to be creative and kind of how to make it
Yeah.
look like a different bunch of trees every time, and with so
Yeah.
many limitations. It was, and most of the trees didn't have tops on them either, so it's like you can't tilt up a
Can
lot.
only go so
So
far up. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it was a really tough challenge, but it was really fun, like having that sort of technical limitation. But how can we use it to benefit the story, and maybe, and
Right.
like for me, like The Thing is a huge reference, and it's like
Yeah.
how like I've done a few horror films now and a lot of night films set at night, and like how I normally do moonlight. I tried on this one to do it completely different because I wanted a harder moonlight and we wanted more shadows and we wanted,
Yeah.
instead of like a big soft source, we wanted it to feel a bit more stylized and kind of how they lit things on The Thing. But it's also like we all, like right before we shot, like Nosferatu came out, and we were also like, oh my God, we love the look of some of their exteriors, like this big
Yeah.
single source moonlight, like just so beautiful. So it's kind of like, how can we take the references of like The Thing and Nosferatu and do it in a studio on a
Right.
smaller budget, So it was definitely a challenge, but it's like that's the kind of, it was a really, as a cinematographer, that's a really,
Yeah.
really fun thing to try to do.
Yeah, the movie has a kind of like this, like especially like in the woods and stuff like that. You have this kind of hazy, dreamlike quality to it
Mm.
that I felt kind of added to kind of the atmosphere. That even without having a lot of trees and stuff, that you guys were able to do it in such a way that kind of felt there was this somewhat of an oppression to it that lended itself well to the overall environment. So I thought
Yeah,
you guys
cheers.
did pretty well with that. So
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, but no, it was a lot of fun. Because I think we shot the whole film in like, I think we did 19 days, 18 or 19
oh
days.
wow,
So it's
yeah,
like, so it was tight, it was very tight.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but then the haze, it's like we had to, like, as we get closer, as we go throughout, we get closer to the Yeti, like we wanted to build more haze and more throughout
yeah,
the film,
yeah,
and then kind of change the look a little bit. So it's like, yeah, there are a lot of elements to deal with in how to kind of progress the story and looks,
right,
and yeah, deal with darkness and haze and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
yeah,
And having to shoot the Yeti itself, kind of like
hmm
show it without showing it, because obviously it's a
exactly.
practical suit,
Hmm.
but it's like it's one of those things where like it could come off kind of hokey or cheap, but like you guys seem to do a pretty good job at like doing the right angles and just enough showing it without showing it too much that it tends to
Yeah,
work for
exactly.
that kind
I
of
mean,
yeah,
it's one of those discussions we had early on because, is it going to be like Jaws, where it's like we reveal the monster, you build and build, and then you reveal the monster in a great way, and then we know what we're doing. Or it's like, do we do at the very start? Are we going to show the Eddie? And like we knew we didn't want that. We knew we wanted to build and have a
right,
reveal of it later in the film. But it's also like I didn't want to completely, in case there were times where we do have a Yeti shot and there was just the silhouette, and I'll try to be an outline of it, but just I'd try and shoot it and light it in a way that we had enough information. If they decided that, like, actually, yeah, this would be a really good point to reveal more of the Yeti. Like, I didn't want it to be like a complete silhouette and take that decision away from the directors and
yeah,
the editor. Like, so there was a lot of balancing as we're shooting to kind of like make sure we gave enough information that, like, there was, if they needed to get a bit more of a glimpse, like I had lit it in a way that it was there, but I didn't just want to brightly expose and perfectly give away the
right,
Yeti too early. So it was definitely a balance as throughout the shoot
yeah,
as to how much to show. And I
right,
think they did a
right.
great, and I think they did a really good job of, knowing how much we wanted to see, and how they kind of keep giving people, because it's like, I mean, you don't also want to be the film that's like the last shot of the film you see it, and that was the only time you saw it. So it's like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely a balance in it, and yeah, we
yeah,
very consciously tried to see how much we could light and how much we could show in each time it was on set.
yeah. It kind of reminded me of another movie with Jim Cummings, the Wolf of Snow Hollow that
Mm,
he did,
hmm
where the werewolf in that is only seen in glimpses, and then you don't
hmm
see it until much later, until the end, where you see it in full. Um, so I think
mm,
that you guys did a good job at of keeping just enough of the suspense there, without revealing too much. So
Yeah,
I
thanks.
think it works. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was
It's
fun.
hard. It's definitely hard to pull off.
Very
It's
much, yeah.
yeah,
It is, and it's also like I mean the Yetis. It's like it's a relatively white, like a little dirty, but it's a white um
yeah,
costume, So when you're dealing with a lot of haze and when the
yeah,
light starts to come through, it's like, it can get lost easily, but it also can become like, oh, that could be cool. But it was a very fine line where it just became this murky mess. So it's like
yeah,
we had to be pretty particular in how we lit it and how we kind of edged the costume, because it's yeah, you want to make sure that we see exactly the amount that we want to see. Yeah,
right,
but
right,
yeah, it was fun.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so what do you have going on next? Anything interesting you can talk about?
Next, it's like I've got another film coming out that the one that I did with two directors as well. That's been in post a while, but we're getting close to releasing that, and that's a completely different, completely different genre. It's based on a book. There was a film years ago called Love, Simon, which I believe
Mm,
Fox released, and it was a pretty big movie for
yeah.
them. But the author of the book wanted to sell the rights to the sequel to independent filmmakers, kind of
Oh,
mix
okay.
it up a bit. So there's a sequel to that called Upside of Unrequited, and yeah, we shot
Okay.
that in the Baltimore DC sort of area, and so that should hopefully be coming out later this year. And yeah, and then I did a TV pilot late last year that I
Hmm.
think we're going to do this series hopefully later this year as well. And there's another horror that's a really interesting, really fun script. Not a creature feature, but it's kind of like yeah, it's a really cool. But there is a somewhat sort of creature in it, but it's in a different vein. So I mean, I do really enjoy. Yeah, I enjoy doing horrors. I've done quite a lot of them, so no, it normally dance
Yeah,
around a bit, and it's like, and which is a fun challenge as a cinematographer because you don't want your work to look the exact same on every movie.
yeah,
Like you
yeah,
really strive to make it look different, but then it's like you're on a movie again and it's like nighttime exterior. And you're like, well, this is different than like how can I give this film a
yeah,
different vibe and look to the last horror film that was nighttime exterior. So
yeah.
yeah, so some horror stuff and then some yeah. Actually, the next feature I got is looks like it's going to be in July and that's in like a road trip sort of coming of age stories.
Okay.
Yeah, filming Louisiana, set in Texas, and
Oh, wow.
so yeah,
Okay.
different vibes as well. So it's always good to kind of yeah, I try to bounce around genres as much as possible,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, but it
No, that's
is,
cool.
but playing it being like this, yeah, like when I read the script, I was so excited because it's like it's just such a fun and playing homage to films that like I love, like films that I when I really
Yeah,
got into it, it's like it was so much fun to go back and watch these films, like when the directors are giving some references and stuff like that. When you get lists
yeah,
like this, you're like, yeah, I can't wait to watch this again. So yeah,
yeah.
it
No,
was really great. Yeah,
it's really cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm not sure that I have anything else to ask, unfortunately. But
No, we're good.
yeah, I think the Yeti, it comes out on April 4th in the theaters, but it
Hmm.
is also coming out on VOD on April 10th. Um,
Mm.
People are interested in seeing it, definitely go check it out. Like I said, it's got Corbin Burnson and William Sadler. They're kind of in small roles. The bulk of the movie
Mm.
has Brittany Allen, who, like we said, is on who was just on The Pit in a very
Hmm.
prominent role. And Jim Cummings is in it as well. He's also a producer on it. Um,
Yeah, it was also. I
so,
tried to get him. It's like I wanted just a little backstory. Like I joked that
yeah,
I was going to get him like assistant gaffer credit because like Jim's so good and he's such a talented filmmaker in his own right. But
yeah,
like there's a lot of stuff where they're walking through the forest with their flashlights, something like that, and he would kind of turn or like just flash the lens with his flashlight and get a little flare across. He would just like wink at me after and be like, "Thanks, Jim." Like you're the man. It was so great. And
that's
so I was
awesome.
like, oh, mate, do we need Jim as like an assistant lighting technician as well? Because he was like, he was crushing with the flares throughout the film. It was really great.
That's
He was
too funny.
awesome.
Yeah, no, the what I've seen him in has been great, and I
Yeah,
really like the Wolf of Snow Hollow. So,
same. Yeah,
um, yeah, so
it was great.
no, that's hilarious. No,
It was
that's
fun.
very cool. Yeah. So yeah,
Awesome.
everybody should go check it out, and definitely go check out some more of your work as well. Um,
Thanks.
and is there anywhere that people can follow you online?
I'd probably just say Instagram's the best at J
Okay.
Froome, and yeah, just hopefully there'll be some of the other films coming out soon. And I
Yeah.
usually try and post a little behind the scenes when we're making the movies, just to kind
Okay.
of the
Yeah.
sets and like when we did the Yeti. I should try and go through my like Instagram stories and post that on my thing just to kind of the random life on set because there was a lot of fun behind the scenes on the Yeti. So yeah, I usually try and post that kind of stuff when I'm as much as I
Yeah.
can while I'm shooting these things. So yeah, but no,
Yeah.
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll be looking out one for the Yeti and for the rest of your stuff that's coming up.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on Teepublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.